East Coast Lumberjack here, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, be sure you hit the subscribe button at the bottom. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you see. We're going to talk about making an axe handle, okay? I've done a lot of videos over the years, and my original videos on how to make handles are starting to get piled way back in the file, so I'm going to do something that's quick and easy here so you can find it a little bit faster. So, to make an axe handle, first of all, you got to know, you got to have good wood, okay? Now, if you go back in my videos, you will see me talk about what makes good axe handle wood. There's two kinds of hardwood trees that grow. Typically, we don't use softwoods for handle wood. But in hardwoods, there's ring porous and then there's diffuse porous hardwoods, okay? So, ring porous hardwoods, when you look at the growth rings, the growth rings, if you look at them really closely, you'll see that there's vessels, there's little holes, okay, vessels in the wood on every one of those rings that go around the tree. Okay, that's ring porous, and ring porous wood, because of its structure, is good for absorbing shock. So the woods that have ring porous, that are ring porous, which are the oaks, the ashes, and the hickories, and elm to some extent, are all really good for objects that strike other objects. So hammer handles, axe handles, sledgehammer handles, that kind of thing. Okay, they're ring porous hardwoods. Okay, and if you look at, go to the wood database, really good website that gives you all kinds of great information about the qualities, the elasticity, the strength properties, and everything of woods. Okay, and in that you'll see that hickories, as far as the ring porous go, rank pretty darn high as far as strength and elasticity, all that kind of stuff, all those properties. And I've done a few videos. If you go back, you'll see me talk about the strength properties of wood. Second to them is what I would call ashes, okay? Your green, white, and red ashes. White is the most common. You don't want to steer away from black ash. That's good for basket making, but not for handle wood. So ash and hickory are probably two of the best, okay? And I will tell you that hickory wood doesn't stand up good when it gets really cold, okay? Minus 20 and below. Hickory only grows so far north, and there's a reason for that. So the cold temperatures really wreak havoc with hickory. It gets brittle when it gets really, really cold. And ash keeps its flexibility. But ash is lighter, and it's not quite as tough, okay? So that's really how it breaks down. But both of them are fairly common, and there's lots of it around. Okay, so that's ring porous. Diffuse porous hardwoods have those little vessels, but they're spread out throughout the wood. Okay, and you can't really see it. So the growth rings are harder to see, and when you do find them, they don't have all those little holes in it. Okay, so the little holes are spread throughout the wood. So that's your wood. That's such as your birches and your maples, your ironwood or hop hornbeam. Those kind of trees are what we call diffuse porous. So they're not great. They'll work, but they're not as good as hickory and ash for tools that strike other objects. But they're really good as far as their lateral strength, okay, their bending strength. So you can pry a lot with them. That's why, back in the day, the old-timers made a lot of the whiffle trees, which were the trees that you had on the back of a horse that pulled your sleigh. They were made out of ironwood, okay, really tough wood and hard to bend. Same as the maples and the birches. They were usually used in your peavey handles. So those woods are good in tools that are meant to pry or push on, okay? So that's the basic two differences. So once we get down to our ring porous woods, okay, we want to make an axe handle, so we know an axe strikes other objects. So we want hickories or ashes is what we want. And I have both. So at East Coast Lumberjack. And that's why I have them, because they're the best for it. So when we go to make an axe handle, the next thing we want to do, those are the species we want. Now we want to make sure the grain is straight. So in order to get straight grained wood, what you do, or what you should do, and what I do, is I take my bolt of wood, and I usually make my blocks 36 inches long, because most axe handles are between 28 and 32 inches. So I make 36-inch long handles, and then what I'll do is I'll take my log and I'll split pie-shaped pieces out of the log. And I've got lots of great videos on the channel about how to read wood, how to read bark, where to get your best handles. It's all here. So once I get that wood, so you want your bark to look relatively straight, and you don't want sweeps in your wood, okay? So If you've got grain that twists around the outside of the log, that's going to give you a crooked handle. You've got to do a lot more, you've got to spend a lot more effort on the bandsaw to make sure your handle's going to be straight. Okay? The other thing I'll say, and I've said it 100 times, the old East Coast Lumberjack says, bark doesn't lie. So if you see a gnarl or something in the bark that doesn't look good, okay, I was just looking at it here, there's a little bit of a, here's one you can see quite well in this bark. Okay, so there's a gnarl right here. Okay, you see that? They have what I call diamonds, and typically you want them stacked on top of one another. There's a little gnarl in the diamonds here, and when I turn it over, okay, on that same spot, you can see there's a little bit of an indentation here, a depression. So there's a knot buried in the wood, okay, and you're going to get to it eventually. But the bark will show you that on the outside. So basically, your bolt, what I call a handle bolt, wants to be about 2 inches to 2.5 inches high or thick, about 4 inches wide, and that'll cover most axe handle patterns. So once you have a piece of wood, the other thing you want to make sure is it doesn't have butt flare in it. And when you look down the axe, the bolt itself, it's straight. Okay, so you can look down that bolt, see that the grain runs pretty darn straight. So that's going to solve a lot of problems with things like run out, which is where the grain runs out of the handle. And I've got another good video here on the channel on run out. Just look back in the archives and you'll find it. So once you have your, what I call a bolt, once you have your bolt of wood, so the grain's straight, no flaws in your bark. Now I picked this handle wood out for a reason, because it does have a couple little flaws in it. So in case you don't get a perfect handle, and you can see this piece of wood here, it's got a little bit of a gnarl here in the wood. It's got a little indentation there. So when I'm putting my handle pattern on this, I'm actually going to move the handle pattern so I go around those. Okay? So the next thing we want is a handle pattern. So there's a number you can have. The most common thing that people make are for a boy's axe or a pole axe, basically 2 to 3 pound axes, and that at my shop is a Hetherington handle. Okay? If you want nice handles for larger chopping axes, I do have Aussie and Kiwi handles. The Aussie handle came straight from Australia. The New Zealand handle came straight from New Zealand, from Tuatara Fawcett's shop. But this is what we use, Eastern North America, for a lot of these pole axes. The Hetherington handle is a really good pattern for that. So I'm going to lay it on here so that little gnarl we found in the wood is right in here. Okay, so I'm going to get that sweep in the handle will get me around that in my pattern. Okay, so I'm only going to be using the good wood. So I'll lay the handle down just like this on my piece of wood, and then I use a Sharpie, just need a marker, and I'm going to outline the handle profile. Okay, now you can tip your marker in and it'll make it narrower than your pattern. You can keep it straight up and down, which will make it a little bit larger, or you can tip it out and make it a little bit wider. So I like to keep my marker straight up and down to give me almost the exact same impression as the handle itself. So I'll draw my pattern on. Okay? And the other thing I try to do is just make one line. I try not to make a number of different lines, because then when you're running through the bandsaw, you're guessing, which line do I follow? Try to just nice straight up and down, one line the whole way down the back of the handle. Okay, and there's your pattern. So that's the handle I want. I've drawn that handle pattern now on my bolt of wood, and you can see that I've gotten around. There was a little pin here. Okay, that's a knot coming up. I've gotten around it by going above it. And there's another one here, and I've got around it by leaving my handle up higher. So the grain in this wood will be straight as can be. And all I'll do now, I'm going to save you the time of watching me run it through the bandsaw. But what I'll do is I'll cut both sides off of this. Okay, so I'm going to cut the far wood and then the near wood off of the axe handle. And then the other thing I'll do, you want to make sure when you're running this through the bandsaw, because again, your wood has a little bit of a wobble to it. See that? It's rounded because it comes from the outside of the wood, which is where you want to take your handle from. So because of that, you want to hold your wood flat, okay? And you want to look at it right here that's close to you when you're running it through the bandsaw and make sure it stays flat. So it takes a little bit of strength, okay? You don't want that the bandsaw to let it roll. And there's two things you can, number one, don't feed it too fast through your bandsaw. Just take your time when you're feeding it through. Let the saw cut the wood. Okay, and number two, you want to hang on to it firmly with your hands so it doesn't wobble back and forth. So once you've taken both sides off, the next key thing that you want to do when you take off this last little cut on the end of your handle, which is the slope to your palm swell, you want to make sure that the wood's sitting flat, and when it comes through that it's straight up and down. So what I mean is, this is one that has both sides taken off of it. So we've taken this piece off right here. We want to make sure that it's parallel. This piece of your handle here is parallel with this. Or vice versa, the back, that this piece is parallel with this. Because now what you're going to do is lay it on the flat and run it through your bandsaw again, a second time, to take off your two side pieces. So when you do that, you want to make sure it's sitting nice and flat on the table of your bandsaw. So to do that, this piece here needs to be perfectly level with this piece here. And you can see on this handle, it is. So when you set it on your bench, like this, it doesn't move, it doesn't wobble, okay? It's nice and firm. Now, if you look at this handle, see the little bit of wobble in that? Okay, so that tells me that it's not level, okay? It's not parallel. So this one here is not with this one here. It's not parallel. Okay, so when I look down that handle, I can see I need to take a little bit more off of this side of that palm swell. So I'm going to do that in the bandsaw. Okay, so I've taken off that little piece. You can see it's a little bit of a triangle here now. But when I set that on the bench, it's nice and firm. There's no wobble there anymore. So now I know when I run it through my bandsaw, it's going to cut straight. So, a little word to the wise. When you make your lines for now we're going to take off the sides of our handle, I use a piece of hardwood flooring. It's straight as an arrow, so I know it's going to give me two nice straight cuts. And I've also cut out on that handle of the flooring, I've cut out the contour of my handle. Okay, so it sits down nice and snug in my pattern. And then what I do is I use a carpenter's pencil with nice straight flat sides on it, and I just draw along. I also center it, I place it so that you can see the grains in your wood, okay? And I center it so that the grain is following nice and straight right along my piece of hardwood. That way I know there's not going to be any run out in my handle. So nice and straight along both sides. The other thing I do, so now I've just got two straight lines the whole way down my handle wood. If I want that flare in there, I'll take my handle pattern that I have with flare, and I'll set it on here again, and I'll draw where the flare is. Okay, now, I normally do this because I've made a couple of handles in my day. So I usually know when to let that flare go. Usually when you get to the hump of the axe handle, so that's down where the curve is at the bottom where your hand goes, once you get to that, you want to just start a gradual bandsaw cut towards the outside of the handle. Okay, so that's how I draw this pattern on. Now I'm going to go back to the bandsaw and cut it out. Once I get my four-sided rectangle handle, and it's going to be in the same pattern that I wanted, I'm going to hold it on an angle and cut my four corners off of that handle, because otherwise I'm going to have to do a lot of spoke shaving to get that rounded. So if I take those off, it makes it an octagonal handle, and it makes it a whole lot easier to work. Okay, so I'm going to do that on the bandsaw. And then the other thing I'm going to do, so if you're doing this, so here, some tricks from the East Coast Lumberjack in handle making. When you're going to make your slot in the top of your axe handle, okay, sometimes what happens is if you cut both sides off first, and then you try to get the center cut in for your wedge slot, it doesn't line up. You don't get it right in the center of your axe handle, okay? And that's frustrating. And I wrestled with that for years. Now, a trick that I learned is before I do my whole full cuts along the side, I'll just cut down here 3 inches or so, come back up and set in exactly where I want my wedge slot to be, cut it out, and then cut down the other side. Okay, so I do my 2 cuts on each side first, I do my wedge slot cut, then I come back and finish the long sides. Because sometimes when you take all that wood off, it changes just a little bit how that sits under the in your bandsaw, on your bandsaw table. So to save that not being straight, I do those 3 cuts first, and then do the rest of the handle. So that's what I do in a nutshell. It doesn't take too long to cut that out. So I'm going to set you up here so you can watch me, and I'm actually going to make those 3 little cuts first, take the sides off, and then I'm going to do the corners. Okay, I'm going to take the corners off on the bandsaw. And I think what I'll do is I'll move my little stand here over there for you so I can set the camera up and you can see it up close, okay? So we're in the, this isn't the main shop of East Coast Lumberjack, but it'll do for now. Okay, down right about here. So you can actually see what's going on when I'm bandsawing. So we're just going to be a minute or two, and I'll be right back to you. Let's come back over to the bench and check out what we've made. So, right now we have pretty much what we want for an axe handle. Okay, so you can see it's pretty uniform. We've taken the corners off, so now it's an 8-sided hexagonal animal, and it's pretty close to where we want it to be. All right, so from here we're going to go to the bench vise, and I'm going to give you 3 tools to finish an axe handle. Okay, now I've made a number of axe handles in my day, and I have found the 3 best tools to use. Number 1, a spoke shave. Okay, now this is a flat bottom spoke shave. It's from Lee Valley. It's a Veritas. Okay, very nice, works really well. Okay, now you don't need a Veritas. I do have a Canadian Tire spoke shave in my shop, my main shop. Works just as well, and it's about 1/3 of the price or less. Okay, you need to make sure your blade's sharp. So that's number 1. Number 2, a Nicholson. Okay, and they call this, there's one right here, right off the shelf. Okay, so this is a package it comes in. It's a Nicholson general purpose half round with handle. Half round file. Okay, 10-inch black diamond, double cut bastard. That's what it is. Works phenomenal. Okay, by far one of the best tools I like. The third thing is a Stanley Sureform. Okay, those 3 tools are all you need to finish a handle like this. Now, right now I see it's right around 23 minutes. So I'm going to finish this handle for you to show you just how quick it happens. Okay, most common question I get asked at East Coast Lumberjack is how long does it take you to make a handle? It's this fast because I've taken the time to make sure I'm selecting nothing but veneer quality wood, taking my time to split it out, making sure my bolts are nice and straight, stacking them up and drying them, and then when I get here to the bench, it's all downhill. So there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes. So the first thing I do is I'm going to basically bring my teardrop shape. So the handle now is flat with 2 octagonal sides. I'm going to bend that front down a little bit by coming back and forth 3 or 4 times or more with my spoke shave, and taking off the wood out here so it slopes a lot more gradually. It gives me a little bit more of a teardrop shape. Then I'm going to take that big corner off outside, and I'm just going to go back. I can see with my overhead light where those little lines are. I just keep removing those little lines that are made by the spoke shave till it's a nice gradual slope around the front. Then what I'll do, it's done on the front right now. I'll move to the middle, take all those bandsaw lines out with nice long smooth strokes. Okay, nice long smooth strokes. So now the middle's done. Now I'm going to go back to the outside corner here in the top. So 6 or so strokes will bring that corner around, and I just keep working my way right around that edge. So it's nice and smooth there now, and I start nice long strokes from the back. Usually you have to work from the back, your palm swell up to the top to get that to come off nice without it chattering. So just back and forth a few times to take that edge off and make it a nice gradual transition around there. So most of that handle, the length of that handle is pretty much done. Now I go with my Sureform, and I'm going to shape around my palm swell. So the Sureform has got a convex bottom on it, so it works really good for getting around these angles down here. So there's a couple of strokes here. Again, we're just getting rid of those corners on the handle. So we've rounded that fast, we've rounded that all over. Now I come to the front part. We're just going to round this angle out here. Okay, so this side is done. Okay, so we're almost there. So let's take a look. Okay, so the Sureform has gone around and taken off all those angles. See now, this side still has the angles. This side is nice and rounded. It's rounded the whole way up along here. Okay, I've rounded it out the whole way up. And now we'll do the other side. Same thing. So, start with the spoke shave out on the end. Now my grain on this side, I've got 1, 2, 3 grains over here that are moving in this direction, so I'm going to swing my spoke shave around and go from the bottom to the top. Because I know if you go the other way with the spoke shave, it's going to dig into those grains. Same thing here, I'm going to smooth out and give myself a teardrop on that outside edge. Down here I can switch it around. Okay. And I've got a few grains out because remember that little gnarl in the wood? We're going around that. So I swap my smoke shape a little bit just to get around that. So the front side's done. Now I'm going to do the main part of the handle. So I'll smooth the whole way up the flat side. And then I'm going to go right back to the back. The shoulder we call it. And the same thing here, round it out. Up the back side, same thing. Rounding us off up here. We're switching right over again to the Sureform and doing the same thing down here at the palm swell. Taking off those sharp edges, rounding them in, making it a nice smooth transition the whole way around the handle. The back of it, again taking off that edge. There, and then use your hands. Your hands will tell you a lot. They'll tell you where the imperfections are. I can feel some rough stuff here, a few down here. So now we flop over to our Nicholson. And the Nicholson is basically just going to take all those rough, you saw the gouges at my Sureform and my spoke shave left. So this here is just going to smooth all those out. So back quickly, I'm around the palm swell. Move up the handle just a whisper. Now I'm going to take off those long seams that are left where the spoke shave left just a couple little tracks, and your eye will tell you, okay? Your hands and your eyes will tell you where those little divots are in the handle. So you're just going to keep working your way up the axe handle, get rid of those little imperfections, swap over to the front, do the same thing here. There. So, just about there. So, how to make an axe handle in less than 30 minutes with the old East Coast Lumberjack. So you can see here, this is where the groove marks are left from the different tools I used. Here's what it looks like now after the Nicholson. Okay, see that? It's ready for sandpaper now. So it's like that the whole way up. Okay, nice and smooth. It's a little bit of where we went around that little piece in the wood. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little runouts there. But we have, look at the grains. 5 runouts. There's probably 30, at least 30 grains in that. My rule of thumb is for runout, never more than 25% runout. You want all the grains running the length of that handle. So on this handle here, we won't actually, on this side there's only 4. So, and there is at least 30 grains there. So we're well within the tolerance. So that in a nutshell is how you make an axe handle start to finish from a bolt, East Coast Lumberjack style. So hope you learned a little bit there. Come back again next week. There's going to be lots more here.